Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caroline Colas, and I am the Senior Director of Health and Wellness at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. Today on our Positive Psychology Hour, a series that we have been doing since the pandemic started in March of 2020 with the Whole Being Institute, we are going to be discussing the power of choice, intention, attention, and action with Stephanie Jalinos. The field of positive psychology offers research and interventions that focus on human flourishing. Today, we will explore these applied tools as illustrated by Stephanie's personal journey. She will share examples of how she chose to shape her days during the pandemic by deploying the power of intention, attention, and action, using the SPIRE model of whole being and whole person well-being. During our positivity hour, we will learn how to craft a 30-day challenge ourselves, tap into the daily SPIRE check-in, and learn about the power of setting micro goals. We will bring each SPIRE dimension to fuller view and create habits that support well-being and enhance resilience, especially as we continue to be challenged to cope adaptively during uncertain times. A little bit about Stephanie. She's a licensed social worker in New York State and a lifelong advocate for social justice and personal empowerment. She began a second career as a youth and community outreach coordinator and later worked at Mount Sinai Hospital in Queens before resigning from her position as director of social services to begin a new life with her French husband in Paris. As an expat, Stephanie supported organizations by creating programs and activities to enrich their members' experiences and ran groups to help women adopt to a new culture and provide social support. Passionate about the field of human flourishing and mutual aid in group work, Stephanie now splits her time between Jersey City and Paris. She is a proud certified alum of the Whole Being Institute signature program, Whole Being Positive Psychology, and one of my colleagues. We were in the SIP program together. Welcome to the call, Stephanie. Let me highlight you. And before we begin, should we do a little mindfulness practice?
Oh, I would love that. Thank you.
All right. So everybody, place your feet on the earth, on the ground, and push into them a minute. Maybe even stomp them a little bit to come fully present, right? When we become aware, and then take your hands, rub them together, and push them on your legs or hug your arms or do a little bit of both. Yeah, so you can feel via touch, right? Your body coming into the present moment. Now inhale with me through the nose or the mouth and exhale through the nose or the mouth. Let's do 3 of those. Your timing. And exhale. And one more time. Inhale. And exhale. And those little moments of just taking a minute to ground and center, to come fully present, to come into the body, means that we can access our whole being, our senses. And Stephanie, that's what you're going to talk about today. So go ahead, open your eyes if you have them closed, and join us. And Stephanie, whatever even attracted you to the SIP program and to the Whole Being Institute?
Oh, I love anything that's going to enrich and empower and elevate my spirit. And so that was it for me. I had been working in the human behavior and human enrichment field since 2003, and it's a chosen second career. So for me, the whole process of allowing life to be there present for you, but to cultivate the life that you wish to live in and to have that power and be empowered is something that's really dear and near to my heart. And that's why the program really spoke to me, because it's all about that. It's all about seeing the best of yourself, the positive aspects of yourself, your strengths, and elevating yourself. So it really resonated.
Beautiful. And I know there are some on the call that are thinking and considering joining the next cohort. They are accepting registration, and I'll put a link in the chat. And I think, Rachel, you're in the SIP
Yes.
program right now. And there might be some others as well that are in the current program. Welcome, everyone. I said earlier on the call, I asked folks to tell me where they were calling in from, and we have everyone from New York to Kansas City to Massachusetts to Honolulu to Alaska, Riverdale in the Bronx, Arlington, Anchorage, Deerfield, Upper West Side, lots of different folks tuning in. Thank you for being here. Stephanie, I love this idea of micro practices. I know that for me, before I took part in the Certificate of Positive Psychology, I didn't even know what micro practices were. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your presentation today. Phoebe, I know that you have the slideshow. So, oh my gosh, Irene is here from Israel. So let's go ahead and get started. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for joining us. And I am so grateful and honored to be here. So thank you, Caroline and Phoebe, for inviting me. And I just have a heartfelt intention to provide something that's going to be worth your while and that would bring you love, peace, and joy into your life. And if I could accomplish a tiny bit of that today, I'd be forever happy and grateful. So my 30-day practice, The Power of Choice, was something that I needed to do because, as like most of you, we lived through a hard time. COVID was tough. And then, of course, there was the political arena, and then there was social justice. And then we hear about the environment and our day-to-day life. I had to deal with the move and contractors and just a lot of stuff. So no matter how much I thought that I was doing things to enrich my life, I still was feeling down and overwhelmed and anxious. So this is where I want to touch base with you all by a show of hands or a yes, no. During the time of COVID and dealing with all the things that you have to deal with, did you feel like your mental health and wellness took a backseat, if not a third seat, if not like it did not exist in your life because you were so caught up in just survival? I just want to know if you guys had felt the same way. A show of hands or yes, no. Because in general, our mental health does not become our focal point. It's usually our physical health. We worry about what we do physically. And with this whole COVID thing, it's all about the physical, getting sick, getting other people sick. At one point, people were so sick that they went and passed away, unfortunately. So it was all physical. And we neglect our mental hygiene. And that had always been a passion for me, is to be mindful about our mental well-being and mental health. So my practice was very intentional. The first was to inspire flow back into my life and cultivate a well-balanced life. So again, I don't know about you guys, but I really felt like someone blew me off my balance and I was so disoriented. I didn't know what's up, down, and to get my equilibrium back, it took a while and it took intentional practice. And I needed to also bring mindfulness into it day to day, thought by thought, and really analyze what's going on with my routine. And lastly, and this is what Caroline just discussed, is setting micro goals to prioritize self-care and positivity. So I didn't want to do huge things that's going to discourage me, because again, how many of you set out to do something and it's too big to accomplish, so you lose faith, you lose hope, and you don't do it anymore? I mean, by just the show of hand, how many of you would agree? So Caroline, back to what you're asking or inquiring about, setting micro goals really is achievable. Set achievable goals that's gonna have that ripple effect where you could definitely keep doing it on a day-to-day basis. So life was already difficult. I just wanted to be kind and compassionate to myself and do something that's attainable and doable. So before we move on to the next slide, I just want to bring everybody's attention to the picture. Now, all the pictures that you are going to see are pictures that I have taken during my practice. It was part of it because I love taking pictures, and I'm a fan of just capturing the moment. But it also reminds me of those moments. And it was a means for me to share it with my two sisters, because I also told my sisters about the practice. This gave me accountability to a certain extent. And also it was kind of fun because now I'm sharing the experience. So that's something else I would recommend you do, is that if you are going to start a practice, perhaps have someone else be either your accountable buddy or just a buddy to touch base with you. So thank you, Phoebe. If we could go on to the next slide. So this is a picture of a period where I felt that I am completely not in control in my life, and I was feeling very down and overwhelmed. And so I took on living fully in my Spire to look at my whole person well-being. And Spire is part of the work of Megan McDonough, who had started the Whole Being Positive Psychology Institute. She's one of the founders. And she talks about the 5 aspects of our well-being and how they really do matter, and we need to pay attention to them. So it is taught to us to basically have a daily check-in with our Spire, to basically find out how are we doing. So prior to this picture, I was home not feeling great. But since I was committed to doing this 30-day practice intentionally, paying attention and taking small action, I grabbed my bike, and I didn't go far. It was like maybe a 5-mile bike ride near a nearby park, grabbed an available chair, sat underneath a tree, and just enjoyed the moment. I savored the moment. And by doing that, my heart opened. The negative energy and the sad feelings kind of dissipated. And I just felt gratitude and happy and at peace. And I had time to kind of check in with my Spire. So at that point, spiritually, I was inspired. I appreciated nature, and I loved the beauty around me. Biking outside gave me that physical activity that I was trying to build in on a day-to-day basis. Fresh air invigorated me. And intellectually, it was time for me to kind of meditate and process and learn and just be curious about that moment, about what's going on. Relational, really, this whole practice was more about me, with me, than with other people. Although it turned out to be, it was great for other people, because the more I was in my own goodness of fit, and this is what a social work term is, when a person is thriving and flourishing, they're in that goodness of fit, the more they are good with other people and life in general. And finally, emotionally, I was just feeling good and empowered that I did something. And again, I want to remind everybody, this didn't take hours. It just, I went for an hour, and then I came back. And I could tell you this, that the Stephanie that left the apartment was a whole complete different Stephanie when she came back. I looked at things from a completely different perspective, and I felt more at ease and more with comfort. I just want to pause here and see if anybody has any questions or anything that needs to be clarified. If not, I could move on to the next slide. So
You're good.
Okay, so let's dig deeper on the Spire model, which I had mentioned. Megan McDonough is part of the work and what she introduces in the certificate in Whole Being Positive Psychology. And it's a wonderful, wonderful tool to use to just keep checking in. And taking actions could be very, very small. And I'm just going to read one example of each. So this is, not sure, I don't know what a chat just popped up. So SPIRE stands for your spiritual well-being, your physical well-being, your intellectual well-being, your relational well-being, and your emotional well-being. How are we nurturing and being mindful about those various systems, those various aspects of our whole being, well-being? Basically, it's what makes us whole on a day-to-day basis. The first one is the spiritual. Now, spiritual could be anything you want to interpret, what brings joy to your life, what brings inspiration. It's not necessarily religious. It's more about what brings awe in your day-to-day life, what really resonates with you and feel that life really has meaning, a sense of meaning. And so it could be as simple as notice your breath coming in and out. That's powerful. That's the human energy coming in and out of your body. And that to me is incredibly inspirational, that my body could do this, that I'm alive, I could breathe. Going for a simple walk is the best medicine, or dance or jog or do yoga, whatever's going to make you physically fit and allow movement and joy in your body. That's part of it. That's part of the whole person well-being. Intellectually, it could be love of learning. I know Rachel is here and she's big on love of learning. She loves learning and connecting the information with her life. Phoebe is a big love of learning person, and Caroline. And so all of you, actually, since you're here, you have the love of learning, to learn how to live life better and flourish. Relational it could be a hug, hugging a loved one. And how many of us could use that right now? I mean, I know during the pandemic, it killed me that I couldn't hug my parents or my loved ones. And now that we have the opportunity, and hopefully soon without any fear, because I'm vaccinated and I'm still very fearful hugging people because I'm just don't want to cause any harm. Fully hugging and just connecting. And then it's what most of you are doing and what Caroline always does, and Phoebe and all of you, is smile. That positive physical appearance of appreciation and connection. So it could be very, very small. It does not have to be running a marathon, writing a bestseller, just small baby steps, and little at a time. It builds and builds and magnifies. I know that there were several questions. I just want to make sure I'm not overlooking anything. Should I continue, or do you want to?
Yeah, go ahead. What Amy was just mentioning that she wasn't sure what SPIRE was. And then Josephina said SPIRE model is a philosophy of living that teaches that in order to be happy, healthy people, we must attend to the whole of ourselves. Each of these five areas equally important aspects of our life: spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional. And I was saying that thank you to Amy for letting us know that helps us. We can clarify. And thanks, Josephina, for that definition. And then, of course, Stephanie, you're giving us some wonderful kind of practical examples of this idea of SPIRE and each one of those areas that we can have these micro practices.
Yeah, and of course, not to say, I could spend hours talking about SPIRE, but of course, the whole Being Positive Psychology program really dives deeper in regards to the whole being well-being. So if you are interested, definitely do look into the program. So here we are. So what's so important about what's going on right now is that I was taking notice, I'm paying attention to my small wins and my strengths, which is really important, because we overlook what we are doing because they're small. And again, they're micro progress, micro goals. So if you do not take the time to write them down and recognize them, because whatever we write and recognize really becomes part of who we are. So my small wins and strength is, and I would write it and put which part of Spire was I using. So in this particular moment, I was having another really busy day. I didn't have a lot of time to do things outside, and I'm an outside kind of person. I love to go outside. Nature nurtures me. I love being in fresh air, and it was a picture perfect, beautiful day. And I was stuck home doing what I have to do, and I wasn't really feeling very great. And so I cultivated, again, an hour and a half. I cultivated time where I said, okay, grab a blanket, grabbed my bike, went to the local park and sat down. And I gave myself permission to rest, to read, and to savor. And I hit every aspect of Spire on that one, just that one move. I was able to just appreciate what was happening to me at that moment. I let go of what was annoying me at home and what was waiting for me at home. But at that moment, I really took the time to appreciate what was going on and appreciating the good. And this park is accessible to me at any given time. So I could always go back and refuel anytime I want. Also, throughout the week, I would write down accomplishment, my small wins. Setting healthy boundaries with a sibling or a loved one is big. So I had to make a note of that. Also, scheduling self-care, weekly visits with healers and connection with friends. The one thing that the pandemic had shown us that, being disconnected is very hurtful for our mental health and our soul as a whole. Walking and biking daily was also something I did not give up. I either biked or walked. It didn't matter. I did it on a regular basis, and that really fueled my effort and really drove me forward to do more. Listing my strengths, and this is more Ryan Nemec's work, value via strength, which is value in action. And there are 24 character strengths that we all possess, we all have. And some we use on a regular basis, which is the signature strengths, which are, well, it's obvious which signature strength is mine, which would be appreciation of beauty and excellence, because I love capturing beautiful moments. But there are other strengths that they fall a little lower, but it's good to recognize that you're utilizing them, even though they're not your signature strength. So perspective, judgment, self-regulation, usually they tend to fall below my signature strength. So it was nice to recognize that they're there and they're active. Love, bravery, and of course, appreciation of beauty and excellence. So this gives me, it's the fuel to continue, that I'm doing something positive and I'm recognizing my progress. So we could continue with the next. Okay. So this quote I love by Gretchen Rubin. She wrote the book, The Happiness Project. And what I love about this, it's simple and yet so powerful. Habits are the invisible architecture of our everyday life. Basically, we could build the lifestyle that we want to have by creating that intention, that having that attention and taking those baby steps. Because just like a building, brick by brick, you'd be able to build a mansion. And this is what we're doing. We're building it brick by brick. The next slide. Thank you, Phoebe. Now, this is a funny picture, because this is all about having fun and enjoying life and really inviting the good. Part of my practice is gratitude, because as Tal Ben-Shahar had shared with us, that when you appreciate the good appreciate, it multiplies. And also Barbara Fredrickson, I always have, it's such a tongue twister for me. She introduced us to broadening and building on positivity, meaning when we do positive stuff, they multiply and they create resonance in our life, and it affects other people too. And it has that upward spiral feel to it. You're always feeling on high when you have that gratitude mentality and the appreciation of the small stuff, the just a sunny day per se. So with this picture, it's one of those hot and humid New York days. I don't know if you guys remember in June, we had one that was like, I mean, it was like 150 degrees, very hot, very humid, and we were getting all kinds of alerts not to go out because of the air quality. And there was a huge storm that's coming. And I was locked up in the apartment with the air conditioning on, and I wasn't liking this at all. And everybody's like, oh my God, it's like the tropics outside, the tropics. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna take a small adventure and go to the tropics. So again, I grabbed my bike, and I live in Jersey City. I'm right across the way from Battery Park. And what's so great about where I live is that you have the option of taking a ferry. And I always love taking the ferry when I'm a little bit down and I need to feel like I'm going somewhere special, because, you know, ferries have that effect on people. So I took the ferry, and I literally just took a 3-minute ferry ride across the way and found a place to sit where no one was around. I was the only, probably, I don't want to say dummy, but the only person who was outside, and it was like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But I didn't care. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna feel like it's like the tropics. Well, you know, Manhattan is an island after all. Why not? And so I went and found a place where I could get, you know, a drink. And then I saw that they had an actual fresh coconut. And I said, well, that really resonates with the whole idea of being in tropics. So that was my mini adventure. I just sat there, drank it, laughed, texted my sister, they laughed. And it, you know, it was again, short and sweet, effective. I felt great. I felt funny, silly. And then, you know, my whole attitude, my whole mindset kind of changed. And I was able to get back home before the major storm came. So it was quick, easy fix for my day that I was having a hard time with. And these silly moments are very important. They do create positive resonance in our daily life and with each other. And this is where I want to share a quote by Barbara Fredrickson that really, really hits home, is that positive emotions are not trivial luxuries. You know, being happy and cultivating happiness, and it's important, but instead might be critical necessities for our optimal functioning. And I could attest to that after I did what I did, I felt good and silly and funny. And so when I went back home, you know, I was probably a much better wife to my husband than I would have been if I had not done what I did. So it does not only affect you, but it affects everybody. And it has that, it's like that reciprocity of goodness that you share with other people. I just want to pause for a minute, Caroline, to see if there's any questions, any concerns, if people could relate.
I have
Yeah.
If anybody wants to jump in.
I have a comment.
Yes,
Hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm Lila from Ottawa, Canada. And I think essentially what you've managed to do was to create an environment for yourself. And that's the issue. We may be in a certain place in a certain time with a certain emotional outlet. And I find the same as you. If I go somewhere else, accessible, easy in my city, and sit in a park and watch kids playing on a swing or whatever, creating a different environment empowers me. I feel powerful, and immediately my spirits rise.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. That's right. I mean, it's those little things in life that we really, sometimes they go unnoticed, and we need to notice them, especially in these trying times, because there's so much unrest, so much fear, so much anxiety, that if we don't look out for them, they go overlooked. They become part of the part of the landscape. They really don't notice what is right in front of us. So that brings me with the next slide, if you don't mind, Phoebe.
And Josephina shared in the chat, this is great. I love to take pictures as well. And I am amazed to see the connection you are making. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your feedback. So, okay, now it's time for us to give ourselves permission to be human and to use self-compassion. I mean, not every day you're gonna wake up feeling motivated. Not every day you're gonna wake up and want to cook healthy meals. Not every day. Permission to be human. Self-compassion is key, especially when you're committed to finishing a 30-day practice. Because a lot of times you're gonna want to give up. Even as fun as what I'm showing you, a lot of few days I just was like, oh, but permission to be human. It's okay. On this particular day, which is another funny day, and I captured these on purpose because I just felt like they held value not only to what I was trying to accomplish, but it would be a reminder for me in later time. So that particular day, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how many gentlemen we have in the audience, because I can only see some of you, not all of you. I was also feeling a little frustrated, and I was behind my computer working, and there was a deadline and I needed to get it done. And I had my herbal tea and I was drinking it, but I looked up and it was already 11 o'clock, 11:30. I haven't had even breakfast. And usually I eat breakfast and lunch home. I cook healthy meals at home because the majority of the time my husband and I are out having dinner, and I'm very mindful about what I put into my body because I feel it if I don't. So I said to myself, today, permission to be human, Stephanie. You go to that cafe that you've been eyeing, that breakfast sandwich, and you get yourself your iced coffee and you go and enjoy it. Permission to be human. So I was so happy. I was so giddy. I went and got something that was like something I wouldn't do under normal circumstances. I found a bench in a park. I usually prefer parks and outside spaces instead of staying in a cafe. And I just sat there and I savored every bite, every sip. It was sublime. I mean, I could still remember it. It was so good. And I thanked the person who made the sandwich for me because it was just perfect. And I thanked the person who made the coffee for me, and it was so perfect. And so it was just so perfect. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a picture of this because this really needs to be documented. Now, if you could see in the picture, I have the drink on my lap, my sandwich on one hand, my glasses. I couldn't take pictures with my glasses on, so my glasses is on my lap. And I'm trying to do this picture in a way that I could capture everything. And wouldn't you know it, out of nowhere, a squirrel jumps right next to me to steal my sandwich. So I literally almost lost everything I had on my lap, including my sandwich, which was like, it could have potentially be a disastrous moment for me. But thankfully I recovered well. But as karma would have it, I scared the squirrel away. So I continued to enjoy my meal and in peace and quiet. So be healthy. And this is where I build in the and this is the work of Maria Siros. In regards to looking at life, life is paradoxical, right? We have the good, but we also have the bad. And we need to hold both equally because they're happening. We can't resist. Being positive and seeking the positivity out there is not about avoiding the negativity, but holding both truths as equal, but honoring them, and our relationship to them is our work. So I could be happy and I could enjoy what brings me joy, even though in the back of my head, I'm thinking, this is not the healthiest breakfast, but it brought me joy and it was fine. And I loved it. So take time to savor, build in the end, and enjoy life moment by moment. Be kind with definitely self-compassion. I can move on to the next slide. Now, finding meaning is very important, and we all want to have meaning, and meaning doesn't have to be huge. Meaning is just appreciating what we already have. And over time, I began to appreciate the good in the ordinary moments where I often overlook them. For example, this beautiful garden, it's a community garden that I must have passed by a zillion times and maybe walked by it multiple times, not paying attention, not being intentional, not being mindful. But because I was doing the practice, I took the time to walk into this garden and really see my surrounding and appreciating what I was looking for. So I started to acknowledge that the small wins and recognize uplifting moments. I found bliss in the mundane and cultivated moments of connection. That was meaning. It gave me meaning on my day-to-day basis, meaning that I could capture beauty, appreciate beauty. And now I need to have your assistance on something, because you see that beautiful flowery bush to the right? Phoebe, if you don't mind going back to the first slide. First one, another one. Yeah, that's it. Now I didn't filter it. I didn't enhance it. This is how these flowers look like. They're remarkable. I mean, if I not had taken that time to enjoy it and look at it, it would have been one of those normal moments I would have just looked at and ignored and not really appreciated. But here's my question, and it's an important question. Can anybody name this flower, this species of plant? Because it looks like it doesn't belong here. It belongs to some, I don't know. It looks sublime. Can anybody name it?
It looks like a form of hydrangea, but some kind of heirloom hydrangea.
It does. It's fascinating. I have never seen anything like this. Had you guys seen something this beautiful before? Because it blew my mind, and that's why it's on my first slide. It's and I just sat there on that bench, just looking at it and appreciating it. Thank you, Phoebe. I could go back to where I was now. So the one with the, yeah, thanks. And thank you so much, Phoebe, for doing this, because no, go back, okay, right here. So that is that moment where it all came in, and it was that big aha moment, right? Finding meaning in the everyday, the often overlooked, and just appreciating the good that is happening on a regular basis. And so I can move on to the next slide, Phoebe. Thank you. Phoebe, the next slide, please. Thank you so much. So it allowed me to celebrate life. That's what it allowed me. And so this picture was taken on 4th of July. And it was funny because it was the tail end of my practice, because I started it in June and this is in July. And so it's a celebration, of course, but it held so much meaning for me because it was celebrating life as I know it. And also it gave me it showed me that even New York, the city that never slept, that was sleeping because of COVID, is slowly coming back to life, and that it's celebrating life. So it brought joy in my heart just seeing that there's celebration to be witnessed and to enjoy. And habits formation gives you the power to choose the life you wish to live. And so my 30-day habit has become my everyday. I'm choosing to live intentionally, mindfully, and take small action every single day because I want to celebrate life. So be intentional about what you wish to cultivate in your life, because what you pay attention to becomes your story. And I hope your story is filled with joy, happiness, and love. But at the end, and as Michael Singer shares, but in the end, you could throw it all away. Just make one basic underlying decision. Do you want to be happy or do you not want to be happy? It's simply that simple. Once you make that choice, your path through life becomes totally clear. And I so hope you choose to be happy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. Wow, that was a wonderful presentation. We have a couple of questions. Vance wanted to know if building on the question of being stuck, like if you're stuck versus moving into action, what is a trick or a technique to getting started when motivation is low, low, low? And building onto that around being stuck, what are 3 things to think, to do, to observe, to become unstuck and begin the micro actions, the micro goals?
That's a wonderful question. And we go back to that spire example. Breathe, take a breath in, take a breath out. Appreciate that your body could do that. Small things. Take a small walk, take a walk, have a cup of coffee and enjoy it. Sit on the bench and savor that moment. It goes back to Spire, those small actions we could take. Smile. Believe it or not, if you smile, you'll feel better. You know, whenever I'm mad, I'm like, okay, smile, smile, smile. And it just, everything kind of feels better. Read a passage. I am a podcast junkie. And it really lifts my spirit to listen to people that inspires me and had overcome barriers in life. You know, having someone to look up, not up to, but someone who could inspire you in a way that you're not alone. There are other people that are feeling exactly the same way, and that you're being held in good company. And it's okay to not feel okay right now. But it's not the end, that moment by moment, things will change. And there's a beautiful thing about group work, and that's why I love group work so much. It's that commonality of a shared experience, that commonality of all coming in. COVID was a human experience. It wasn't just America, it wasn't about Europe or China. It was a human experience. It affected all of us. So we were all feeling the sadness, the anxiety, the fear, all of us. So do micro goals, micro steps, and look upon other people who are modeling a whole being lifestyle, people that are aspiring to live life the best way they could. Because at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all having the same feelings. Peace, love, and tranquility. We all want that. So don't do this in isolation. Definitely do it with other people and take baby steps. And
Let's take one now. Everyone in the chat, let's go ahead and take a micro moment right now and just list one thing that you're grateful for. Let's populate the chat.
That's a great idea, Caroline.
I am grateful for, and I'll show you, my little red shoes.
Oh.
They make me laugh every time I have them on. So anything that you're grateful for. Let's see what we've got. Grateful for health, Vance. Yes. Kids, food. I'm grateful for my new iPhone. All right, Joanne. I'm grateful too, because now I can call you. Being alive, these lectures during the pandemic, family, a wonderful friend, ability to walk, trees. Oh, yeah. Ice cream, grandchildren, grateful for beautiful apartment. I'm grateful for this webinar and the connection that Stephanie is making with her experience and her pictures. Thank you. Yes, I agree. Just returned from Cousin Fest 2021 reunion in Vermont. Chicken soup for the soul. Oh, I'm grateful for chocolate. And if you will find that you're grateful for that as well, please raise your hands and go like this. In sign language, that's like, I agree. It's like clapping. And when we do something physical like that, to reinforce it, it's going to begin that upward spiral. It's going to help us lift our mood. Vance, you were talking about, what do I do when I'm really low, low, low? The motivation is low. Remember, the brain says, if I'm sitting down, I'm good. I don't really have to do much. But the moment we start to move, the moment we get into action, things change. And don't be surprised if there's resistance. Remember Newton's law. If something is at rest, you need to have resistance. There needs to be a force against it to get it to move. However, what's also true, once it's moving, it's easier to move it, to continue moving. So that's a really important thing. Sometimes when I look at a project, like the dishes in the sink, this morning I said to my husband, as I picked up the fork, I said, oh, last one, right? Which means what? Time to do the dishes. I was like, okay, you know, well, how do you do the dishes? One at a time. But I did have the thought, I wonder if there's any plastic silverware in the in the drawer, right? Humor is also a way that you can motivate if you're feeling low. You can motivate yourself and elevate you. Let's see what else we had here. My yard, dancing outdoors. Yeah, chocolate. Mercy and forgiveness from Jesus, everlasting life. Beautiful. Ellen Klein, to be involved, connected with the JCC, WBI, Beauty of Nature, Family, Music, and Movement. Thank you. Yes, yes, absolutely. And what is JCC, please? JCC stands for Join a Caring Community. No, actually, it stands for the Jewish Community Center. And this is who is our sponsor, along with Whole Being Institute. Reminds me of Stephanie's pictures. Yes. So let's think of other ways that we can elevate ourselves. One is, and Stephanie, I would love to have you chime in here. One is to think of past successes. In other words, when I'm feeling low, or if I have a challenge ahead of me, if I borrow from the past, this is something that we do in positive psychology. Wait a second, I've been here before. This isn't my first rodeo. Maybe the pandemic is new, right? We haven't been there before, but I've been, all of us, I've been, if we're human, I've been in a challenging situation. So Stephanie, how have you used that in your life when you think of, wait a second, I can do this because I've overcome a challenge?
Absolutely. I mean, it's part of the resiliency that we learn about. It's about the post-traumatic growth that we cultivate. You know, and thank you for asking this question, because as a social worker, we always talk about post-traumatic stress, and we're always concentrating on the problem. And what positive psychology does is the opposite. It concentrate on your growth. That yes, things do happen to us. Life is gonna happen. Like this morning, I almost wasn't able to present because my computer froze. And it's our relationship with what's happening, but also what are the tools, what are the insight, what are the experiences that we're bringing into this particular moment. So the first thing I did is say, calm down, take a moment of pause and breathe. Simple. You're gonna do this. You did it before. You're gonna do this. It's gonna be okay. And even with big things, I've gone through divorce, health issues. Instead of looking at I failed at this and that. No, I look upon them as learning experience, and that I grew better, and I was enriched, and I used strength. And that's the part that is so important when you do these practices. Write down your wins. Write down your strengths, because that's what's going to motivate you to continue and do it again and again and again. There's a poet that says, I'm going to misquote it, about failing time and time, but fail beautifully and fail again. There's nothing wrong with trying and failing. It's just that when we don't try, the hope is gone. But if we continue to try, there's always hope that we're going to get it right. And so that's what I could say, is that the post-traumatic growth is about things are going to happen. We're going to deal with hard stuff, but we've done it through our strengths and our resiliency. We were able to overcome it. And so that's what concentrating on the strength, not the problem, but the strength, that is so important.
So let's do it now. We did it. We elevated each other with our gratitudes. What have I When did I overcome a hardship? So just take a moment and think, when did I overcome a hardship or meet a challenge? I remember when I ran my first and only marathon. It was in college, so it was a long time ago. But when I did, I wasn't sure I could do it, right? And so one of the best things about that is I have a picture of my father running alongside me at that time in my life. My dad now, he had a stroke a year and a half ago, and now I'm training him. And I always keep that image of him running really strong. When I train him, I keep that image of him when he was running alongside me. And so, and when I see that, I don't see the problem. I see that. So that's an example. So what's one of yours? What strength did you use, right? And for me, it was my perseverance and my zest that I use in those situations, right? With my dad, and my sense of creativity and fun. I make it fun. So let me hear from you. Let us hear from you. What is something that you've overcome, and what strength did you use to do it? And then if anybody wants to unmute and just tell us a story. And then also, I don't want to forget to thank you, Lois, for reminding me. I've had a few folks ask me if I wanted to get a therapist that was a positive psychologist, that really had this focus. Is there a directory or anything? How would I find them? How do positive therapists and psychologists, do they have shingles that they list out, and say, is there a way to do that? So you and Phoebe, if you can think about that while I read from the chat. See Psychology Today website for listings. Wonderful. Wow, that's a great. Vance said, I love this, utilized love, my top strength, to overcome the disappointment that my daughter and her family didn't move to New York City as planned during early COVID. Beautiful. Resilient coping during COVID was shown to be one of the success factors cited by positive psychology researchers. Let's see what else we have. Forgiveness, acceptance of past pain, strengths I used. Beautiful, Ellen. Anyone else? What are some of the strengths that you have used? Right? I see. Let me change this. Anybody want to just unmute and tell us? We have time. You feeling brave?
For me, one thing that the pandemic has shown me is that I can't control anybody else. So my goal is to try to control the only one I can, myself. And that has been a blessing. That's been a strength.
Yeah. Boy, that's an awareness. Okay.
I've tried to do that also. I've tried to focus on what I can do and how I react to things. And that definitely has an impact.
Mm-hmm. I like to think of it this way, Lois. Thank you for sharing that, and Amy as well. Let's say that Stephanie and I were dancing together. We were doing the tango, right? Because, when you dance a ballroom dance, it takes two. And then suddenly I change to the waltz. Do you think she's going to be affected by it? Yeah. So when I take care of myself, when I change my dance, when I change what I'm doing, and it does affect the other person and the people around me. I don't have to wait for them to change the dance or get mad at them that they're not doing the waltz or yell at them that they're not doing the waltz. I can simply do it. Let's see, stay calm in difficult situation while offering an explanation. Yeah, not having the need to explain myself. Yeah, Josephina, beautiful. Anyone else have Joanne says, micro example. I got soaked in a rainstorm and long subway walks on visit to the Van Gogh exhibit. Was feeling cranky when I got there. So I took funny photos, including of my pants that matched the Van Gogh design on the floor. So and it made me laugh.
That's funny.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And may I just say
go
something?
ahead. Yeah.
I just want to say that, yeah, absolutely, it's for you. That's why I mentioned with the relational aspect of the whole being Spire model is that the relationship was really for me to really tap back into my sense of how I want to live my life and how I want to show up, not only for others, but for myself.
Mhm.
And in so many ways, this helped everybody that was around me. I mean, most directly is my husband. I went from very nervous, anxious, like a nervous Nelly, to calm, cool, collective, happy. I would share my experience with him. So absolutely, it's first and foremost, it's for you, but it doesn't, that positivity resonance is going to ripple. And I mean, I see my siblings even feel it. So it's a gift that keeps on giving if you do the practice.
Do you remember, Stephanie, in our first immersion in SIP, which is the Certificate in Positive Psychology by the Whole Being Institute, that Maria Serwa had us do a assignment about writing like a little paragraph of what our ideal self
Absolutely
would be like, and then reading that, and it just became this little small paragraph. And I borrowed something from hers, which was, I take the time to become wise, which means that I pause before I speak. And that has helped me so much. And she said that over time, she reads that every day. It's just a micro practice. Who do I want to show up as? What do I want to be in my life? Who do I want to be in my life? What part of me? All are welcome. All parts of me are welcome. But what do I want to bring forth, right? And as my positive person in the world, right? And I that was very revelatory for me,
Yes.
that moment.
I agree.
Yeah.
How am I showing up?
How am I showing up? And of course, we know, again, in between stimulus and response, there is a pause. And in that pause, there is a moment where we can choose. And guess what? We can choose again, again, and again. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. It's so true. She was such a model of her own practice today, because she really had a hard time with her computer getting on. And she was just like, okay, not to worry. I'll do it. I'll get on my phone if it doesn't work. And then we had to figure out the PowerPoint with Phoebe. It's okay. She went through her slides. So you were not a nervous Nelly at all. So this micro practice must be working.
It is. Thank goodness. Yes. Yes, it's a lifestyle now. It's no longer a practice. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. A way of being. Well, it's just so nice to spend time with you again. And Stephanie is somebody that I met in the Certificate of Positive Psychology. And now we are colleagues and we get to spend time together. I never would have imagined that before.
Me neither.
That training.
I'm feeling very blessed right now. I'm very grateful. Thank you so
Me
much,
too.
Caroline.
My heart is full.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and your effort.
Beautiful. I'm going to take off the spotlights, and everyone, you can unmute and let Stephanie know.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Caroline.
Stephanie.
Thank you.
You so much.
Thank you, Phoebe.
Thanks an awful lot. Stay positive.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care, everybody. We'll
Caroline.
see you Thursday.
We appreciate
Right.
you hearing, walking the walk.
It's really great being with all of you.
God bless you all.